Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. What a fun couple weeks we have to look forward to. And we're going to go back to a really fun Apex card this past weekend. Without further ado, I'm not going to drown out this intro. Let's just bring in the man. You can follow him on X, JohnMorgan_MMA. What up, John?
What's going on, man? Yeah, it's we got a lot of MMA to talk about, right? I mean, it's a fight week for CFFC, it's a fight week for UFC, it's a fight week for the PFL. So we got a lot to talk about. But yeah, how do you not talk about what just happened this past weekend as well, man? Maybe a card that kind of flew under the radar, but ended up being a lot of fun, man. A really, really entertaining afternoon. And I'm telling you right now, I'm just going to throw it out there. Brandon Royval might be my favorite fighter on the UFC roster right now. Just the way he fights, the way he carries himself, the kind of guy he is. That might be my guy right now.
I said right before we started recording, I said, how can you not like that MFer, right? Because he is just so fun to watch. And if you're rooting for him, somewhat infuriating at times because he takes these risks with position submissions over position at time that really put him behind the eight ball. But, you know, it's like Honey Badger don't care. Brandon Royval don't care.
Yeah, it's like if you're his coach or his family member, you're probably like, what in God's name are you doing? But as a fan, you're like, yeah, let's have some fun, man. Let's go out there and scrap. He just makes it incredibly entertaining. And this was a really big win over Tatsuro Taira, who I don't think really maybe has gotten the kind of love that he deserves yet. I mean, he's still on the rise, but you heard it from Brandon Royval himself. Like, I think that dude's going to be a future champion someday. And I echo those sentiments as well, man. I think Tatsuro Taira is really, really good. So this was a big win for Brandon Royval, but it's one of those losses where you look at the guy that came up short and you're like, dude, I don't think you really lost any stock whatsoever. Like, I want to watch your fights moving forward as well. So, man, what a great fight that was to finish off what was a really fun fight card.
Now, this sets up Royval to get that title shot that he wanted, albeit that then Pantoja is fighting a guy that nobody knows about, but an undefeated fighter, but that nobody knows about. So we'll talk about that in the future. But now Royval has put himself into that position to be the next guy to get a crack at the shot after this next opponent. But let's go to Taira for a second, because this was a coming out party for him in a loss. And, undefeated. He was 16-0 going into this, and a relatively unknown 16-0, had trained with Royval, trained with a lot of fighters, and they're all saying the same thing about this guy, is he is that good. So if they're saying that about Taira, what are we going to say about Royval now? He is that good. He is the next guy in line, and just it's a fun fight. And typically, an Apex Fight Night card after a pay-per-view usually isn't one that we ever discuss. Let's just be honest, right? Albeit I watch all MMA, so I watch them all anyways. I'm always a fan of it. But this is one that we are going to talk about, or that we are talking about, because Royval and Taira just put on, like you said, a fight of the year candidate.
Yeah, I really do. It really had a little bit of everything, right? I mean, not only was you talking about high-level skills on display, but what I say, and will it still be there as a fight of the year candidate at the end? I don't know, but I think it at least deserves to be in the conversation, because not only did it just have high-level skills, but it also had those ebbs and flows. You had those momentum shifts. Oh, man, that's what I like, right? When you have, I think this fight's almost over this way. Oh, my gosh, I think this fight is almost over that way. And it's going back and forth. I mean, literally, obviously a split decision. Sal D'Amato had that first round going towards Tatsuro Taira. Chris Lee, Ron McCarthy both had it for Brandon Royval. But if you look at the cards the same way I had it, and I think how most people had it, it's Brandon Royval taking 1, 3, and 5, and Tura taking 2 and 4.
That's exactly how I had it.
That's amazing. So to go back and forth like that in a fight, drama filled. And hey, I'm gonna go ahead and give it up to the Vanderbilt baseball team that was in there as well, man. They were providing some volume in there, because the Apex doesn't fit a whole lot of people in there, but the people that are in there, if they're being loud, it gets really loud, and they were giving it some great atmosphere as well. So I don't know, man. This fight had everything to me, and it also had stakes. That's the other thing that matters, right? If it's the two lowest ranked guys on the roster having a great fight, it's still a great fight, but it doesn't impact the division as much. This one does impact the division because, as you said, Royval is next. he kind of said it, and I think he's right, that if Pantoja is able to beat Kai Asakura, maybe he has to fight again because they already had that history. He already lost. Maybe he doesn't get it right away. But if Kai Asakura wins, he's right there. And I love Royval's attitude. Again, we're praising Royval. Him saying, I'll be the backup. I'll do whatever you need. Like, I want that shot. I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I love that attitude, man. So this was a big fight for a lot of reasons.
Fun fight. And last thing I want to say on this fight is Brandon Royval's corner. They did an awesome job. Exactly. Hey, box this MFer up. Like, don't throw any kicks. Don't do this. Stop giving up your back. And the reason I bring up, his coach was saying everything I was thinking. But I don't know what it is these days with fighters so willing to give up their back. I mean, is it their ability to, they think, hey, this is an easier position to scramble out of? I think that really is what it is. But when you have somebody locking in a body triangle, the minute you give up your back, like they're up against in a clinch position, standing against a cage, and he was literally letting Taira duck under to take his back, because I'm only thinking that he's thinking that's an easier position to get out of, which, of course, it was not an easier position to get out of.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of risk-reward scenario, right? Obviously, you're well aware of it. If you give up your back, at least hey, if I put 2-on-1, I break the grip, I turn aside. I mean, the process to getting yourself out of that, and maybe you look at that as the easier scenario. But I'm with you, man. I'm still that. I guess it's an old school mentality where, like, that's the worst possible position you can have, is to have somebody on your back, because there's literally, I mean, there's a little bit of offense you can do with somebody on your back, but not much. You know what I mean? You get the old school ankle lock on them or something like that, but there's not a lot you could do. So I'm with you. I don't like to see the willingness, but you're right. And I think, it's great that you pointed out the corner advice, because this is the first fight camp that he's away from Mark Montoya and Factory X. And I don't know exactly what happened there, that a couple of those guys kind of left the gym. There's always gym drama and things happen. Maybe sometimes you just feel like you want a different look. I haven't heard the full story, but I do always worry a little bit when somebody leaves the gym and kind of goes out on their own, like, oh man, are they not really going to be focused on what matters? But I thought he was getting some great advice in there from Alexander Hernandez, and you're right. And I love it. Just level with the guy. Just tell him what's going on. Tell him what you see. Tell him what you observe. Don't sugarcoat it, right? Here's what you're doing right. Here's what you're doing wrong. We need to see more of this. So it was great, man. If you missed this fight, man, it's definitely worth going back and watching. It was, like you said, sometimes these fight cards kind of slip under the radar a little bit. But this was a fun fight and a great fight card.
And Royval was the type of guy you can speak to that way, because that's the way he speaks, which is like knowing your fighter, which is great. But like I said, we never usually talk about the Apex card following a pay-per-view because we're always looking forward. But so now it's time to look forward.
Wait, before we look forward too far, can I just give a shout out to Grant Dawson for giving perhaps the funniest interview I've ever heard in my life, when he said that, my favorite thing about my wife is the fact that, she supports me so much. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my second favorite thing. My favorite thing is that she has a dump truck you can bounce a quarter off of. I mean, Grant Dawson, let's go. How did you not just become everybody's favorite fighter, man? That was a hilarious moment from the card. That man deserved a $50,000 performance bonus. He had a great fight, but he deserved a bonus just for that. Just had to give him a shout out.
Where his bun is buttered. He definitely know where his bun is buttered. It's at home.
I'm telling you, man, I was cracking up. All right, now we look forward. I apologize. I just had to mention that because it cracked me up.
PFL Battle of the Giants coming up this weekend. Renan Ferreira, Francis Ngannou. Man, do we have two enormous dudes. Brace yourself for impact. Now that's the tagline. All right. But brace yourself from impact. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, 17-3, Francis Ngannou, 13-3, Ferreira. And can we say that this is an ultra dangerous fight for Francis Ngannou? I mean, I literally look at this fight and saying, yeah, he secured the bag. Yeah, he secured a future. But if we're going to talk about your place in the history of this sport, you have so much riding on this fight. It is dangerous against a dangerous opponent.
I could not agree with you more. I think you and I have kind of been on the same page since this fight was announced. I think a lot of people are looking at this as just awesome. The return of Francis Ngannou, and they got him a warm body to go in there and just knock out and restore his superstardom. That is not the case in here. This is an incredibly dangerous matchup. Renan Ferreira, I mean, the nickname La Problema, I mean, the problem. That dude is absolutely a problem. And I guess I understand the betting lines. I mean, Francis Ngannou is massive.
I don't, John Morgan. I don't get them. Minus 350? No, I don't get that betting line.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said it. I kind of don't get it either. I was trying to be nice and trying to say, look, I get it, Francis Ngannou. Because, look, we see it, right? That's one thing about mixed martial arts betting lines. You know, you look at the NFL every week, they got that thing dialed in, man. Every half points, I mean, they know it. In MMA, I still feel like there's still a little bit of emotional response in the lines. You know, if a guy is more famous, people are going to want to put money on him. If a guy's a fan favorite, people are going to put money on him because, like, they just want to bet on their guy, the team that they have the cheering interest in, right? And I feel like Francis Ngannou is everybody's guy, right? We've seen him. We know, you know, what he did in the UFC. We know what he did as a person to walk away from the UFC and chase after these boxing dreams and went out there and represented himself very well against Tyson Fury. But now he's coming back to MMA, and it's a different sport than he's been focused on. And I'm not saying you lose all those skills, but it hasn't been where his head's been at for the past couple of years. And he's going against this guy, Renan Ferreira, that is massive and incredibly athletic. Dare I say, I think more athletic than Francis Ngannou, to be honest with you. And that's saying something for Francis Ngannou.
8 inches tall, cutting to make the heavyweight limit. I'm going to say that again. 6'8" and cutting to make the limit.
That is absolutely insane. And you look at this run that he's been on. I mean, look, is Ryan Bader best suited for light heavyweight versus heavyweight? Maybe his best days were probably light heavyweight, but nevertheless, Ryan Bader's had quite a bit of success at heavyweight as well. And the head went out there
is going to make the top 15 in both of them in the world.
There
okay,
you go.
Put some respect on Ryan Bader. He's always been marginalized to a degree. Ryan Bader is a freaking stud, and all he needed to do was be touched. He was only touched by La Problema. He was only touched by him. Fight over.
21 seconds. 21 seconds. 21 seconds. I mean, you believe that? I mean, it's unbelievable. So you look at the run that he's been on. I mean, he's just absolutely tearing through people, starts people. Now, listen, you know, he's had some setbacks along the way. He's had some wrestling deficiencies. And Francis Ngannou is certainly, you know, working in a camp that that has improved his wrestling skills, and he's shown that he has that. But I don't know that, you know, Francis Ngannou is not going out, you know, doing anything in D1 wrestling anytime soon. You know what I mean? So I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. And a stand-up fight, man, I don't think you necessarily want to just coin flip it with Renan Ferreira. So this is a dangerous fight. I'm so intrigued by this matchup.
Now, we're going to get into the fast turnaround here in a second. But before we do, I want to talk about the implications of the mythical figure that is Francis Ngannou moving forward. If one, this fight he's in danger at any point in this fight, or if it's a very tough fight, but then more importantly, if he loses this fight, coming off a horrendous knockout to Anthony Joshua. I mean, horrendous and not even competitive. First round knockout. I mean, bell rings, he gets starched essentially. In boxing way, that's basically what the bell rang, he got starched, okay? Not to mention everything the guy has been through personally, just the headspace he was in, right? We've already talked about that, but then he goes into the Joshua fight, he gets starched. Now, that has left an impression on everybody, okay? Now he comes in after not fighting MMA in what? I mean, you could probably tell me really quick. Let's just look.
It's been January of 2022, so it's been almost 3 full years. I mean, you're January 2022.
Since he had his last MMA fight. Now if he comes out and takes an L, what does that do for Francis Ngannou? Like, I look at this almost as a no-win situation. You got what you wanted. You secured the bag. Right? You secured the bag and you left the UFC for the payday. Got it. And you successfully did it. Now you're coming back to MMA because contractually probably obligated to.
Right.
And the fans want to see it. If you take an L, it's a no-win situation.
It is kind of a no-win situation because if he wins the fight, I don't think a lot of people are respecting Renan Ferreira the way you and I are, right? So I think a lot of people will just like, well, like, of course Francis beat this no-name. This dude's from the PFL. What is he? You know what I mean? So it is kind of a difficult no-win situation. If he wins, well, yeah, you were supposed to. I mean, that's ridiculous. You were the reigning UFC champion. Of course, you start this no-name. If you lose, you're right. That's 3 straight losses in combat sports overall. I mean, we all believe he had a great showing for himself against Tyson Fury. That Anthony Joshua knockout was absolutely scary. And if you lose here, especially by knockout, it's going to be tough. I guess the bright side would be he is 38. So I don't know that there's necessarily a whole lot of fights left that he wants to line up anyway. So I don't know that you necessarily lose out on a lot of opportunities. And he has gotten paid incredibly well, right? So he has secured his financial future in those boxing matchups. And we also know that he's going to be playing an administrative role in PFL Africa as well, where he's going to try to help grow the sport there. So he does have everything lined up. So from that regards, I guess, it's a no-win, but you've already set yourself up in everything that you need. So it's okay. But yes, as far as your overall reputation and as far as, let's be honest, revisionist history, right? I mean, when UFC walked away, when he walked away from the UFC, he was the top dog, but a lot of people are just going to go back and be like, yeah, the UFC got rid of that guy because they knew he wasn't even that good anyway. You know what I mean? That's why they didn't want to pay him so much money. Revisionist history, especially in this sport, is a little bit rough sometimes. I mean, ask people, especially newer fans, like what Ronda Rousey meant to the sport, and they'll just trash her because of the way the career ended. Heck, if you're a new person in the sport, you might have only seen the tail end of Anderson Silva's career, maybe like don't know what all the big stuff was about. I don't get it. You know what I mean? It's tough. So this is a tough spot for Francis Ngannou. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it from a standpoint of, 1, I'm a fan. I want to see it. 2, I'm terrified for him, to a degree because of all that. But, now maybe he's not built this way, but most fighters are. So I'm going to lump him into a category that most fighters are concerned about their legacy, right? And I'm worried. I'm worried because we always, and let's go back. Me and you are probably like the 2 of the only people out there that have really said, listen, the UFC didn't lose. Francis Ngannou didn't win. Francis Ngannou got what he wanted. And the UFC wasn't willing to give what Francis Ngannou wanted. So it's perspectives. Everything's perspectives here. Okay. So now we move forward 3 years removed from that. Now we have this juggernaut named Tom Aspinall. We have John Jones going up. Gosh, let's just wait to see what they're. Oh, yeah. We have Poatan, flirting with the idea. Okay. In 3 years, all of that has taken the Francis Ngannou shine.
That's right. Because every time we have those conversations and we start getting excited about the matchups, and it's no disrespect, but we don't say, yeah, but none of them really matters because Francis Ngannou isn't here. They still matter. You know what I mean? Now, if Francis was in the mix, of course we'd be talking about him and it'd be amazing. But he's not, and he went and pursued his passion and chased his dreams. So like you said, everybody just kind of went in their direction. There was no real winners and losers.
So you use the Ronda Rousey analogy so perfect, in my opinion. The influence that she had on this sport and the impact she made. If you were the diehard and you were there through it, you know about it, and it's gonna reign supreme forever in our minds. But not with anybody coming in. There's a fear that that's going to happen with Francis Ngannou if he takes a loss. Now, if he takes a win and he looks spectacular doing it, then golly, the internet is going to break with what if scenarios. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, man. Then Dana's going to have to get asked. Hey, by the way, now I don't know. So there is a UFC event this Saturday as well at the Apex, Anthony Hannah versus Michelle Pajeda. I don't know if Dana White will be in attendance or not. Usually he does. Sometimes he isn't. But if he does, because that event takes place in Saudi Arabia hours earlier, it will be done and in the books. And if he does win, if Francis Ngannou does find a way to win, Dana White will be asked about it in the press conference. He will have to address it. It will get brought up. Do you want to talk about it? How, where would he stand? So, there is the opportunity that if he wins, all those things, as you said, come rushing back and people go talk about it. I will say this, though. the fighting legacy may be a little bit in jeopardy, but I do think Francis Ngannou's legacy, just kind of on the business side of things, I guess, or showing people what's possible, I think that's secure, right? No matter what happens here, he showed that if you want to pursue other options, you may have to jump through some hoops, you may have to do some certain things, but you can do it. And he got some contracts changed and all those things. So that impact will never go away. Now, is that the kind of impact that people want to talk about when they're talking fights? No. But behind the scenes, I think his legacy is certainly secure.
Because let's be honest about what we're talking about, though. Like, I think when we're talking revisionist history and we're talking about where was Francis Ngannou in this whole heavyweight mess, he won an interim title or a vacant title, right? He had one defense, Stipe Miocic, and he avenged a loss, right? But now he was 1-1 against Stipe. Then all this happened. So in reality, he beats a Cyril Gane for the title, which John Jones runs through in a minute. Then you knock out a Stipe, very impressive. That's very impressive to do it the way he did it.
Yeah.
But we're really talking about one defense of a title. It wasn't this long reigning, championship. So I just look at it from it's a very risky and he's got a lot of legacy to lose in this fight. That's why I just say the upside isn't there. But now listen, is he secure? Is his family secure? Is his family's future family secure? Yes, yes, and yes.
Well, I was going to say, that's the part you got to remember, right? They call it prize fighting for a reason, right? The prize is the money that comes along with it. The belts and like you said, the legacy and all those, they matter as well. But what really matters is those paychecks that come along with it. So, if the man goes out there and loses in 5 seconds and never fights again, he still won. You know what I mean?
Right?
He still won the game. It's like, we talk about Conor McGregor all the time. Is he going to fight again? Is he going to fight again? I'm telling you what, if I'm Conor McGregor, I'm not fighting anymore. I got the money in the bank. You won the game, bro. You won the game of prize fighting. So, but you're right. It is really interesting in how you want to line it all up, because you and I have talked about before, like, one of the things I see in true greatness is longevity. I like seeing multiple title defenses, man. I want to see that you beat a generation of fighters, that nobody during your time was capable of unseating you. You look at Demetrius Johnson, you look at Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, John Jones. These are just lengthy title reigns. That to me is what screams out as the most impressive. What Francis Ngannou did was amazing. Obviously, his highlight reel is unmatchable. I mean, the power that he brings to the table. But, where he stands long term, I think a lot will be riding on the result of this fight and what people think of him long term. And as you said, what his fighting legacy really is.
Yeah, I mean, he's fascinating. Francis Ngannou is so fascinating to me. Out of everything he's been through, just getting into the sport where he wanted to box originally, going through the immigration process, everything that he went through there, to getting to the highest level in the world, then just unspeakable tragedy, to then securing these massive paydays and winning again, to then, losing to Joshua. And like, it's just his life story. They should make a movie about this guy.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like when you really go back all the way where you're starting from, I mean, working in sand mines and just abject poverty, like, it really doesn't matter what happens to him the rest of his life. You know what I mean? Like, even just getting to where he is. Let's take the multiple millions of dollars out of the bank. Let's just say, he's middle class American, like making it by every day from where he came from. Like, you already damn near won the lottery just getting out of the situation that you were in. Now you catapult to where he is and where he stands. So I think that's what's important to remember as well. I mean, again, I do think a lot rides here on how people view him in his fighting legacy. But as far as just what he's done in life, the man has absolutely won, and he is an absolute inspiration for anybody and everybody that takes a look.
Yeah, and if he will chronicleize it, go back a couple years ago, did Joe Rogan podcast where they talked about it. I mean, step by step by step. And if you are not a fan of Francis Ngannou and you are not inspired by what he has overcome, then you're an asshole. I mean, I'm just gonna say that.
That's the truth. Like, if
you don't have
ever
to be a
just
fan of him, but if you're not inspired by what this guy has done and gone through, then you're just not a good person. I'm gonna say it.
It's the truth, man. Like, if you've ever sat back and be like, man, I wish I could accomplish that, but the odds are just stacked against me. Like, that'll never happen for me. Like, go listen to this dude's story and see what he overcame and what he was able to do. It is true. And just the nicest dude. I mean, just a humble guy, really cool. And, man, yeah, rooting for the best. But, whew, and if I had a man, scared.
Oh yeah.
Scared.
Now we got to talk about the fight again. Golly.
yeah. Now we're talking about the beautiful story, but we got to talk about the problema. I mean, good Lord.
Let's look at this guy's history, everything he has gone through in his life, and even everything he's gone through recently. You think this guy is scared of another human? You think he's scared of that risk against another human? Hell no, he's not. And I can tell you that. I've never even met the guy.
Absolutely not, man. This fight might not last very long. It could be over very, very quickly. But man, when those two massive, battle of giants, it's an easy call. But come on, when they're in there together, like every punch that is thrown is going to be like it could be over immediately. So I'm loving this fight. But kind of as you said, going back to the odds, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, we're seeing Francis Ngannou with like minus 325, minus 350, hit up ahead of plus. It's been bet down a little bit because Francis Ngannou started out as an even bigger favorite. Again, maybe I'm crazy, but I just don't feel like that's an accurate representation of the competitive nature of this fight, man. This just feels much more competitive.
It's not. Francis Ngannou is 6'4". Ferreira is 6'8". Now, what does that say to me? It doesn't say that, but I'm going to say that probably Francis is probably the better striker, so maybe he can mitigate that length advantage. But what it says is both these guys have one-shot knockout power. Just touch you, you are going to sleep. And I don't care if you're anybody in the world, you're going down, them included. So
100%.
So I'm not going to say it's a pick 'em. I don't know enough. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just hope these two guys come and plant their feet in the center of that cage and just say, all right, let's go.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, listen, again, Francis Ngannou has every capability to win this fight. It's just, as you said, I think the odds are a little bit out of line. I mean, you mentioned the height differential between the two. You mentioned the fact, look, they're both in their 30s, but Renan is 4 years younger. I mean, heavyweight, maybe sometimes that matters less, but speed starts to go a little bit and athleticism starts to fade a little bit. So he is the younger man. He's been training MMA full time. He's at American Top Team now. You're getting great looks there. You're getting great coaching. Francis has been spending a lot of time on boxing. There's certain things you can do in boxing gloves in terms of defense that you can't do in MMA gloves, right? So if you happen to fall back on those tendencies that you've been training over the past couple of years, all of a sudden you get clipped. So I don't know, man. There's just a lot of reasons for me to have some red flags and say this is a concerning fight for Francis Ngannou. But man, if he can go out there and win, what a big moment it will be for him. But fireworks.
Last thing I want to say about this fight is I do want to touch on the quick turnaround. Okay. Pretty much every pundit you ever hear, us included, are going to say it is beneficial for you to take a long layoff after a really bad knockout. Now, he's had a layoff, right? I don't think it's long enough. Is that the ability to play into it? Because I'm going to say probably it has the ability. Whether it will or not, I don't know. But if I was advising in Ngannou, I'd say, hey, there's nothing wrong with waiting 4 to 6 more months for this.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I just said it. There's a lot of reasons for red flags, and I didn't even mention that one. And I think that is another one. Now, I mean, obviously, the way the body reacts, we'll find out. Like you said, we don't know for sure, but every doctor recommendation you ever hear is, you get your lights put out, take as much time off as you can. And let's even think about it like this. Let's say that it's fine. Let's say it doesn't impact him at all. His chin's still there. It doesn't. But what was his training like? Was his team so concerned with, hey, listen, man, you had that nasty knockout. We've accepted this fight. There's no getting around that. But we're not going to do any hard sparring. We're not going to go because we need to keep you as safe as we can. So does that have like an indirect impact? Did it impact the way that they were able to approach the training and able to get ready for this fight? So there's a lot of reasons to be concerned about that. I mean, I'm sure that the PFL didn't make the guy fight, but I'm sure they wanted this. They've been waiting a long time to get Francis Ngannou on pay-per-view, and I'm sure that they encouraged him to say, you ready to go? We're going to Saudi Arabia here in October. What do you think, man? You ready to do this? So yeah, it is. Again, we'll see how it plays out in the fight, but you can't talk about the fight and not at least consider the fact that we saw him lights out in March. That was not a pretty knockout.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. March 8th of this past year. Let's say he needed a 6 to 8 week training camp for this fight. So March, April, May, June, July, August. Let's say he started training early September. That gives him a 5-month rest period, right? Before he's back into training. Oh man, it worries me. It does worry me because I think everybody's going to say, hey, we want these guys at their best.
Absolutely. We've been waiting a long time for this fight. We've been waiting a long time for the PFL debut. The last thing you want is any kind of like, well, that doesn't really count because, no, you don't want to see that. You want these two guys to be at their best. I guess bottom line is even if they were at their best, they're so big, it doesn't matter. Like, one
right.
shot. You know what I mean? Like, it just takes one.
Just
you can run 5 years.
Swinging.
That's it. So, but yeah, we want to see him at their best. This is a big moment. It's a big moment and I think the direction that Francis Ngannou moves going forward, right? If he suffers another knockout, now you start talking about, hey, man, the money's in the bank. You got the executive job lined up. Is there any reason to keep doing this? But if he wins, then it gets real interesting, and maybe we start talking about what's next and who's out there and what makes sense moving forward. Maybe you start having the John Jones discussions again. Don Davis is going to come out and say something about the UFC. That guy just loves poking the bear, man. He loves stirring the pot a little bit. He's going to come out and say something. So it'll be real interesting to see how things unfold on Saturday.
All right. And on Saturday, other couple notable fighters on there. Obviously, we have also the women's featherweight world title on the line. Cyborg versus Larissa Pachenko. Johnny Evelyn and Fabian Edwards. Looking forward to that one. AJ McKee, Paul Hughes. Don't know much about Paul Hughes, but I know a lot about AJ McKee, and that dude's a bad man.
Paul Hughes is a stud, man. He's kind of had the captivation of the European market for quite some time, but this is a big step. I think a lot of people were surprised that he got this rush. I think it shows a lot of respect that the PFL has for Paul Hughes, but man, as you said, this is not an easy fight, man. This is a stern test early in his career. So a lot of great matchups in here, man. There's some really good fights on this card.
Yeah, I'm going to be excited for it. Are we ready to look even further down the line?
How can you not? We got a couple of pay-per-views this month, and that next one is looming awfully large. I'm looking forward to it. So we might as well.
2 weeks away. UFC 308. Ilia Topuria versus the BMF man himself, Max Holloway. Ilia Topuria 15-0. Max Holloway 26-7. And these boys are going to fight each other, but they are talking a lot of shit lately, which is making this even funner. And you don't really see Max Holloway engage as much as he has been to a degree. You don't really see that. He's always that cool, calm Hawaiian out there just, chilling, but I think Ilia Topuria has gotten under his skin a little bit in that smug way that he has come across, whether that's an interpretation, language barrier or not. But I'm excited for this fight, man. And I'm shocked by this line.
I am a little bit too, to be honest with you. And yeah, it's funny you talk about the language barrier. I thought that was, a dart in itself the other day. It's like I'm talking to you in English because you can actually understand it. Like we could talk in Spanish, we can talk in Georgian. What do you want to? They've had so many bars. Ilia Topuria is absolutely smug. In a fun way, right? He's just like you think he defended the belt 10 times at this point, which is cocky and confident as he is, and he hasn't. But he is great. He's undefeated. He's exciting. He's fun to watch. And I think Max Holloway is just so universally respected, right? Like you won't find anybody on the roster or in the sport or I think in life probably that has anything bad to say about Max Holloway, right? Everybody loves Max Holloway. So I'm sure he's not used, like you say, he doesn't talk a lot of trash, but he's probably not used to somebody coming at him like this. You know what I mean? So listen, it's been fun.
Ilia Topuria is low-key hysterical.
Hilarious.
All right. Listen. Now, I understand why people don't like him. Right. And I understand because one, getting the title off of Volk, who is universally loved. Right. Yep. Now his first defense is going against Max Holloway, who is even more universally loved, if that could even be possible. But the stuff that he has said in this lead up, and the one thing that I was just like, that is, if you were talking to anybody else, that would be the most hysterical comment I've ever heard. Is he's like, I really respect you, Max. You have 7 losses and you just keep coming back. Like, I respect that about you. Like, I was like, dude, that is low-key hysterical and talking so much shit at the same time. It was funny. And if it wasn't against Max Holloway, everyone would be like, dude, that dude's troll game is on 1,000.
Savage, man. He is. That's what the troll game is on point. That is just such a subtle little dig. You know what I mean? That's the backhanded compliment. It's amazing. I hadn't really thought about it.
Getting up 7 times off of losses. Now, I wouldn't know about it. I'm undefeated. That's what he said.
Yeah, I've never had to go through that. I imagine the character that it takes. It's unbelievable. I mean, that is phenomenal. Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't really thought about it either because, listen, I think anybody that was watching Ilia on the way up, you could see the talent right away, man, right? I mean, this guy.
Bryce Mitchell.
Oh, my God. You just saw the skill set that he had. But you are right. In terms of, like, getting fans to like you, like, beating Volkanovski and Max Holloway in successive outings is not going to help you at all. Like, right. I mean, no matter how good you look, people are just going to be like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? That is kind of funny. I had to consider that part because Ilia Topuria is great, man. His skill set is unbelievable. And look, he's doing big things, right? I mean, obviously he represents Georgia, which, gosh, look at what Georgia is doing right now and look at the levels they have. But also, working on bringing the UFC to Spain. And we always love to see that, right? Like new markets, new passionate fan bases. And, it looks like that's going to be happening sometime maybe in 2025. So he's doing some great things, but you're right. I don't think, beating Max Holloway is going to earn you many fans, unfortunately, regardless of how good you look out there.
No, I'm sure you do, but do you recall, I think I said it here on this show, when the first time I saw Ilia Topuria in the Apex Center, I was reffing a card that night, and he just comes walking through with his turtleneck up to here and a jacket on. Do you remember what I said about him?
You look like a gangster, right?
He looked like a mafia boss, like
a mafia boss. That was it.
Aura walking through is like, I'm the mafia boss, and he had people flanking him. I was just like, dude, there is an aura surrounding this guy. You better respect him.
Yeah, 100%, man. And he really does have that. I always say he looked like, straight out of a fashion magazine or something like that. He's drinking his red wine before the weigh-ins. I mean, like, just, dude, it's incredible, right? But listen, I mean, this is a big name for him. I mean, because as great as he's looked on the way up, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, Jai Herbert, Ryan Hall, Damon Jackson, I mean, all tough athletes, but not kind of that upper echelon. Now the run that he's on, Bryce Mitchell, Josh Emmett, Volkanovski, but a lot of people would say perhaps a diminished Volkanovski that he faced. Now Max, I mean, there's still room for him to prove how great he is, even with an undefeated record, even with the title, there's still room. And I think that's what a lot of people are turned off by right now is that the guy seems to act like he's already, the GOAT and he's in the John Jones discussion when in reality, he kind of just got here in terms of the upper echelon division. And if that's what you want to say, if that's why you say, I'm not a Topuria fan because I feel like he hasn't earned it yet, that's fair. But you can't deny the skills. You cannot deny the talent the man brings to the cage. And, would you be surprised to look up a couple years down the road and he does have 5 title defenses or he does have, absolutely not. The guy's that damn good.
Yeah, people could say he hasn't earned all that respect yet. Yeah, no, baloney. You knocked out Alexander Volkanovski. And yes, was he diminished? Was he too quick of a return? I think universally we can all say yes. But the way that Volkanovski fought him in that fight showed that Volkanovski didn't fight like Volkanovski usually does. He was pulling all his punches. He looked like he was way too, I'm not going to say respecting too much because you can't respect it too much, but he was so worried about Topuria's counters and his boxing and that he wasn't willing to shoot in because he was so worried about the speed and everything. Volkanovski fought him different because of the level of respect he had for Topuria that I haven't seen Volkanovski fight anybody that way. Islam Makhachev included. So I say all that to say this, right? Ilia Topuria, if anybody is saying he hasn't earned that respect to be calling all this, yeah, maybe in the longevity history, but he's that good to be doing it. I'll tell you that.
Oh, 100%, man. The athleticism, as you said, the speed that he has is on point. You know, the power that he has. He's a knockout threat, but he's also a grappling threat. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm sitting here thinking about it. I haven't really started breaking this thing down yet. We got a couple of weeks up, but I mean, in my head, just as we're talking about, I'm like, man, what is the game plan? I would say for Max Holloway. I mean, obviously,
I can tell you what it is right now.
Got to use your range, number one.
Use your jab. Yep. Use your range. Don't bite on any feints. You know, and keep them guessing when that right hand's going to be coming behind it.
That's it. I mean, that's it, right? That is literally the only play. And even then, I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable. But yeah, you got to stay at range, right? You just got to stay on your bike. You got to move for 25 minutes. Never be a stationary target, and use the length that you have to your advantage.
He needs to fight Topuria exactly how he fought Justin Gaethje. Exactly. He was beautiful when he fought Justin Gaethje. He kept him at the outside on the range. He didn't get into firefights with him. Right? He didn't do that, Max Holloway. The one thing I said about Max Holloway that really worried me going into Justin Gaethje is that he gets hit a lot. And he didn't get hit a lot against Justin Gaethje. And it wasn't because Justin Gaethje was off. It was Max Holloway fought a little smarter, you know, and was keeping Justin Gaethje guessing the whole time. And that's what he's got to do against Topuria. Fight that same way.
You know what's been fun is as they start to, transition to the promotion for this event, and we're seeing obviously that UFC 300 moment. I don't care how many times they play that highlight. I'm getting fired up every time, man. I mean, him just like going in the middle with Justin Gaethje and putting him face first on the canvas, and then just, he's got the look on his face as he walks into the cage celebrating. I mean, I'm getting chills right now just talking about it. I'm not even seeing it. So I don't care if they play that promo 500 times between now in the fight. I'm gonna get chills every time I see it, man. That was one of the greatest moments in UFC history.
It was the greatest. It was the greatest singular moment in UFC history. Yeah, it didn't have a title on the line. It wasn't the main event, but it was two guys that everybody loves doing gangster shit in the middle of the cage. And they were both willing to go down, and one of them did, and it was unbelievable.
Oh, man. Even just like, it sounds silly, but even like just the way Gaethje fell, you know what I mean? Like even the way he goes like face down on the canvas, like that just makes it even better. You know, had he just like staggered backwards or something. I mean, just everything about that moment was perfect. As you said, who's involved, what they're doing. There's no need for Max Holloway to even do that. Like if anything, it should have been Justin Gaethje saying, please come here. I know I'm down on the cards. Give me one last salvo. Instead, it's the dude that's winning that went up a weight class.
What if he does that? Or he's going to do that against Ilia Topuria if this gets into the final. Holy moly. The one thing we say is you got to be at range. He's going to be like, I want to go back to Justin Gaethje, right? Because I saw this meme. I don't know if you've seen it. It was going across the internet. If you hadn't, look it up. Somebody's like, why did they do this to Justin Gaethje? This is just wrong. So they showed a clip, right? And they mashed up different clips together of him high kicking Dustin Poirier, coming down and hitting him with that hammer fist before Herb Dean jumps in. Then he runs to the fence, climbs up, does the backflip off, and right in midair, you see him falling with the knockout from Max Holloway.
That's just disrespectful, sir. Whoever created that, go away. We don't want your kind around here anymore, man. You don't do that to Justin Gaethje as a savage.
Oh man, it was great editing though.
That man, I don't care how great your video editing skills are. That man is not to be memed with. Okay, that man is not to be memed with unless it's something to meme about what a badass he is, man. Get away. No, I have not seen that. In fact, I'm banning that. If I see it, I'm reporting it to Elon Musk. If I see that thing, let's get this person. Yeah. Clearly, this is a criminal. Get them off this platform.
John Censor Morgan over here.
We will only use our talented skills for good. We will not be negatively memeing Justin Gaethje. Dang it.
Oh man. So, needless to say, we're excited for that fight, right?
Right.
I want to bring you back to an exercise that we had about 2.5 months ago.
Okay.
Where we laid out the upcoming schedule and we said, what fights are we most excited for?
Yes.
Do you remember that exercise?
I recall because there's no way. Now, do I remember exactly what order we fell in? I don't. A lot of things have happened between now and then, but what I do remember is that Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev is right up there at the top of that list because I am so fired up for this fight, man. As
I put it as my number one.
As much as we just sat there and talked about Topuria and Holloway, I mean, we could sit there. Obviously, we got time until then, but we could sit there and talk about Whittaker and Chimaev just as much because two studs, two savages, real stakes on the line. Hell of a fight. And 5 rounds.
Well, and so that's the one thing we talked about is early on, it wasn't as the co-main at first in a weird way. And it was, I think it might have been the opening bout like they originally lined up with, and it was 3 rounds, and me and you were both like, why is Whittaker not demanding this? But I think it was the way it got put on this cards,
right?
And probably it hadn't been updated like it probably should have when it first got announced. But yes, it is the co-main. Yes, it is 5 rounds, and we are going to see one if Whittaker can withstand the onslaught in round number 1. If he does, we are going to see if Chimaev has the cardio and the stamina to go 5 rounds. Because guess what? Whittaker will be there in round 5 if round 1 isn't a complete blowout.
100%. It's interesting, right? Like, I feel like you're almost holding your breath for those opening 5 minutes, right? Because Robert Whittaker, another guy that's absolutely universally respected and liked for his fighting abilities, for his character as a human being, just everything about him. Like, you're not a fan of Robert Whittaker, you're not a fan of the sport, man. I mean, that dude is just everything. But we know that Khamzat Chimaev in those first 5 minutes is just an absolute terror. Like, he's capable of literally
devil.
He's capable of beating anybody on earth, regardless of weight class. Those opening 5 minutes, Khamzat Chimaev can beat anybody on earth. There's no question about it. But we have seen issues from him, and that as things play out, you know, that maybe things fade a little bit, and he's not quite as skilled. He's not quite not that he's not still, you know, dangerous, and not that he's not still capable. I mean, he's won decisions, but he's just not quite the terror he is in those opening 5 minutes. He basically like comes back down to earth a little bit. You know what I mean?
He's never been in 5 rounds.
And he's never been in 5 rounds. Exactly. We've only seen that in 3 rounds. So we've never seen 4 and 5. And that's a big question. We talk about that a lot here, right? We're not saying he can't, but when you haven't seen something, there's question marks and you want to see. And not only are there question marks, but there's tendencies that would seem to suggest that round 4 and 5 would not look very good for him, right? Because of the way we've seen him in round 3. So intrigued by this, man. Very, very intrigued by this. Because, you know, the Khamzat Chimaev hype train, I think has died down a little bit. You know what I mean? There was a time when
100%.
When he made the debut and the fight on, this was like everybody's favorite fighter. Like, oh, I love this guy. This is going to be everything. And then he's had, you know, all these issues and unable to fight and unable to stay busy. And I think a lot of the fan support has kind of backed off, but the dude is still incredibly dangerous, especially in round number 1. So fired up. Fired up.
Yes. He's definitely dangerous in round number 1. I want to get down. I definitely want to do a deep dive next week into breaking down both of these fights. I think it's going to be more interesting to break down this fight than even the Topuria and Max Holloway, because I think it's fairly simple. If this stays on the outside, Max Holloway's got a great shot of becoming again and new. But if it's played in a phone booth, man, that's a tall task. Yeah. With this, man, I'm just even going to say it right now. Round number 1, Whittaker, back yourself up to the cage and just get yourself in a really big defensive ball and let him work his butt off to try and take you down.
Yeah.
Drain that.
It's a dangerous thing, right? Especially in mixed martial arts with the small gloves, right? To be like, I'm just going to survive, right? I just know I need to drag this thing late. But I think you're right, to be honest with you. I mean, Whittaker's got, you know, great striking defense. He's got great grappling defense as well. And I think you've just got to make sure Chimaev is working, right? And if he's not working, then you got to try. Because it would be interesting as well for Chimaev to come out and be like, slow a little bit and just, all right, I'm going to pace myself a little bit. I got to get myself, but I just don't think he has that in him. To be honest with you. You know what I mean?
No way that's going to happen.
I can't see him just stand out there and be like, no, I'm going to make you come to me. You know what I mean? I'm going to rest on the outside. So yeah, you're 100% right. I think so too. You just got to get yourself ready to be, I mean, and if there's anybody that's mentally capable of executing a game plan like that, it's Robert Whittaker. But like, I really think you have to go in there thinking, I am going to go through 5 minutes of hell, and it is going to be difficult, and it is going to be upsetting, and it is going to be painful. But then I get to come out for round number 2, and now this guy's got 20 minutes of dealing with me. And I think if that's your mindset, you know what I mean? Which again, that guy, Robert Whittaker, has the capability of executing a mindset like that. It could be very, very fun, man. So
You have the line on this?
I think Khamzat Chimaev, the last time I checked, was up around minus 180, minus 200, which, look, I'm going to tell you right now. If I can get Max Holloway as an underdog and I can get Robert Whittaker as an underdog against anybody on earth, I'm probably sprinkling a little something, right? Like, I don't care who they're facing. I mean, these are two of the most seasoned, accomplished, respected men in the game, and they're both fairly significant dogs in these fights.
I wonder what the parlay on that would be. Golly.
That'd be nice, right? Put those two together. I mean, look, not saying it's like, oh my gosh, these lines are ridiculous. I mean, this is obviously Khamzat Chimaev and Ilia Topuria are both incredibly talented athletes, and they could easily win those fights. But I just always like that when I see guys that you know what they're capable of, when you know, if anybody's got to dig deep, does anybody ask, do you think Max Holloway has that dog in him? Do you think Robert Whittaker, do you think Robert Whittaker can survive late? Like, come on, man. Like, so anytime you can get names like that, fighters like that with some underdog odds to it, man, it just feels like you got to at least take a look at it.
Right. Man, I don't want to jump the shark too much. We are going to talk about this next week, but I mean, I could go on rants right now. And I'm not going to do it. I think I'm going to.
And I was going to say, and it's what I love about it is it's one of those daytime cards too, right? Because it's over in Abu Dhabi, so it'll be like a Saturday afternoon card for us, which I love even more. That means we don't have to sit around waiting all day for the fights to start. You get to watch them in the middle of the day. I love those days.
Yeah, I'm just fired up for it. I can go on rants. You can go on rants about just how excited we are, start breaking things down. We're gonna hold off. I'm going to have some self-control right here and hold off. So I would love to hear about CFFC this coming weekend.
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but I believe my man CM Punk will be back in the building. We haven't gotten to see him for a couple months because he's been busy for WWE. So that right there is a win, number one. I believe that's all locked in. If I'm breaking news I'm not supposed to, I apologize, but I always get excited. Not that I haven't enjoyed exactly. Not that I haven't enjoyed working with Gina Lucille. I have. She's done a fantastic job.
She's great.
My man, she's phenomenal. My man CM Punk is great. So looking forward to that. Philadelphia 2300 Arena, so a very historic venue there. If you know about the building, a lot of pro wrestling unfolded there over the years, but we have a great show in there. Vacant featherweight titles on the line. Really, really good fight. Anthony DeLime, Bo San Diego. Anthony DeLime, unbeaten, part of the Serra-Longo fight team, man. A really, really good fighter. Meanwhile, Bo San Diego, a little bit smaller camp, Gilbert Grappling out of the Illinois area, but
those guys are dogs.
They're dogs, man. They really are, and they pride themselves in that. They kind of like that underdog status.
Perez,
they like that mentality.
Perez. He's in PFL now.
That's it. So Jose Perez, this was his title. It was vacated when he went to sign with the PFL, and now his teammate Bo San Diego is here trying to win that belt.
Woo,
said he wants Jose. I love it. Says he wants Jose to wrap the title around him if he wins. He kind of looks at it as like, hey, we continue this lineage, and Jose will be there in his corner. But again, Anthony DeLime has been an incredibly talented fighter as well, and it's his Serra-Longo fight team. Not a bad squad to have around you there either. So fantastic main event. But there's a lot of really, really good fights on this up and down. I think it's going to be a really, really exciting fight. Kaushik Sycamore is back. Robert, he's facing a tough guy in on the other side of the cage there. Robert Vericchio is back. Alex Martinez is going to be here. Eric Nolan is there. So, I mean, really, really good fight card. Not a lot of tickets left. So if you're in the Philadelphia area and you're thinking about going, get your tickets ASAP. There's not a lot left. If not, make sure you watch it on UFC Fight Pass.
And if you're not on the CFFC train yet, get on board. You're going to see these guys next level. We're seeing them all the time. Them and LFA are the two breeding ground for future UFC stars. So watch them. And the production is one step under UFC. I mean, it's 1A, 1B. Their production value is through the roof.
Such a great job. And listen, I know you'll be excited, but the Division I CFFC Match Day season starts on October 31st as well. I know what a big college wrestling fan you are, so I'm excited to be a part of that as well. I don't do as much on the mic there. I still might do some. We're trying to figure out the full schedule, but the full schedule should be released this week. The UFC is approving and finalizing everything, but the cool thing is we start on October 31st. So the full college wrestling season starts November 1st, but we got a special exemption from the NCAA to do the rematch, Campbell and Wyoming. It'll be on a rodeo grounds. Last time it was in the barn. This time it'll be at a rodeo grounds, and we get to do it on October 31st. So it's like kicking off the season before the season even goes. It'll be the first competition of the entire season. So looking forward to that. And the details on the rest of the schedule will be coming out this week. I've obviously seen them. It's big, man. There's big names on there, man. There's Iowa, there's Iowa State, there's Oklahoma State, there's Missouri. I mean, some top level programs along the way. So it's gonna be a fun year.
Well, I'm excited to watch it. I am a huge NCAA D1 wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling fan just through and through. Call it Greco-Roman, freestyle, folk style. Doesn't matter. I'm a fan.
Professional.
Professional. And by the way, just on that really quick, today would have been my kindergarten's first wrestling practice. Would have been.
What happened?
Beast mode happened on the playground, and he broke his collarbone.
Oh no! Oh my gosh! Dang, that's got to be scary. What happened? Did he just fall off something, or
no? Just running, and he tripped and fell, and I got a call from the nurse saying like he hurt his shoulder, but I think he's okay. Not a big deal. I noticed him walking at home later that night like this, and I'm like, dude, we're gonna go to the after hours orthopedic, and he's running around in there, running up and down the stairs. I'm like, sit down. We go take an X-ray of the things like this. What
a savage, bro! It's like he's walking around with a broken collarbone, like not even complaining about nothing. Just be like, I think I'm good. Just rub some dirt on it, pops. Let's go. Rub some dirt.
Yeah. Oh man. But I mean, he was obviously in a lot of pain when it first happened, enough that they called me. But they're like, I think he's good. It's like it wasn't in any rush to pick him up. Waited till school was out. He's like, hey, Dad, I had a good day today. I'm like, dude, 3 weeks into kindergarten. That's
savage.
My son.
You can't really, with broken collarbone, you can't really do much, right? You just gotta
sling it.
I mean, sling it and just try to keep it stationary.
And the sling is more just so it's a reminder for you and others not to do anything stupid.
Right. Oh man, savage.
So he's missing his first wrestling practice today and gonna miss the first. They have it in 2 seasons, so he's gonna miss the first of 2 seasons this year due to it. But we're gonna come back strong after Christmas break. But anyways, with that being said, a lot to look forward to this week coming up. The Battle of the Giants, Ferreira, Ngannou. 2 weeks from now, UFC 308. We're going to dive into that next week. We'll get the results and dive in and break them all down like we do, because I'm not going to pat myself on the back too much, but me and John Morgan probably are the best in the game at that.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Josh Thompson, John McCarthy, you guys are okay too. Not like us. Not like us.
That's great. I love it. I'll be the humble one. I always know that you're going to be the one to make sure that we get the recognition we deserve.
You damn right. All right. With that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.